Stand by. Good evening. I'm Jeff Koinange, and this is Jeff Koinange Live at Citizen Television. And you know, if it's Wednesday, it's all about JKL. Tonight, a week and a day since we went to the polls, and I tell you, there's been an about turn by NASA. My guests tonight are here to break all that down, what it means. 3 lawyers, that's right, 3 seasoned lawyers coming in right now. Dr. PLO Lumumba, Karibundugu, the Grand Mullah, Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, and of course, Kamodo Waiganjo. Good to see you guys. They're all here. So have a seat, gentlemen. These 3 will be breaking down what it means going forward. And we're asking you the question, what do you think of NASA's move, or make that NASA's about turn to go to court? Send us your responses. SMS number 22422. You can tweet us at Koinange Jeff, at Kamodo Waiganjo, at Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi. No at PLO. He's not on Twitter. Hashtag, as always, JKL. Make that JKL, otherwise we wouldn't be able to read them. And JKL begins right now, tonight.
Now decided to move to the Supreme Court and lay before the world the making of a computer-generated leadership. The court can use this chance to redeem itself, or like in 2013, it can compound the problems we face as a country.
All right, our sign language interpreter is Douglas Okaya. Tonight, the opposition alliance NASA has made an about turn and decided to take its contest on the outcome of the last week's presidential election to the Supreme Court. In a statement read by presidential candidate Raila Odinga, NASA declared that it had resolved to go to court, not to give legitimacy to those calling on them to concede, but to demonstrate to the world that the election tallying by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission was a fraud. And as Sam Magina reports, NASA says it has gathered enough evidence to show that there was deliberate manipulation of votes to grant President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto a second term.
After initially insisting that they will not challenge the outcome of the presidential election in court, the National Soap Alliance leaders finally had a change of mind.
The raid on civil society and determination to silence all voices that could seek legal redress, like the AFRICOG and the Kenya Human Rights Commission. We have now decided to move to the Supreme Court and lay before the world the making of a computer-generated leadership.
Flanked by his 2 core principals, Kalonzo Musyoka and Musalia Mudavadi, Odinga expressed confidence that they had gathered enough evidence to overturn the verdict by IEBC to declare Uhuru Kenyatta the winner of the presidential election.
NASA wants to show the world what transpired in the fraud. Accepting such a crime for the 3rd election in a row would irredeemably entrench the triumph of anti-democratic impunity and the permanent death of democracy.
NASA maintains that the tallying of the results was manipulated through an algorithm, thus making Kenyatta and Ruto computer-generated leaders.
Tumesema Wakenya hawezi kuvumilia tena wizi wa kura. Haya viongozi ni vifaranga vya kuku, vikaranga vya kompyuta. Kompyuta ndio iliwataga, kompyuta iliangulia, kompyuta ikawatoa vifaranga vya kompyuta.
They urge their supporters to peacefully continue protesting the outcome of the polls, even as they embarked on the court battle.
But we say that Kenya is definitely not too large for all of us to ensure that anyone who wins the people's votes and not the loser is declared president. This is just the beginning. We will not accept and move on.
NASA also claiming that some observers had failed the impartiality test.
We also have the no less bizarre situation where some observers grossly violated their mandate and started calling upon NASA to concede even before the IEBC officially announced the election's outcome. Shame on them.
The opposition troops back to the Supreme Court for the second time to challenge the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now the country will have to wait a little bit longer for the swearing in of the next president that had been scheduled for the 29th of this month. Sam Ogina, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, thank you, Sam. So, with the decision by NASA to move to the Supreme Court, the spotlight now shifts to the 7 judges led by Chief Justice David Maraga, who shall be required to make a determination over the next 2 weeks. Equally key to this epic legal contest will be the lawyers for all the key litigants who will be out to sway the judges their way. Sam Gituku has more.
For the next 2 weeks, the supreme battle for the presidency moves to this premise. And the burden of determining whether President Uhuru Kenyatta was validly re-elected shall rest on the shoulders of 2 women and 5 men who make the bench of the apex court. These judges are Chief Justice David Maraga, Deputy CJ Philomena Mwilu, Justices Njoki Ndungu, Mohamed Ibrahim, Smoking Wanjala, Professor Jackton Ojwang, and Isaac Lenaola. And even before the matter is active before the court, NASA leader Raila Odinga was already upping the pressure on the judges.
Our decision to go to court constitutes a second chance for the Supreme Court. The court can use this chance to redeem itself, or like in 2013, it can compound the problems we face as a country.
The NASA appeal must be filed by Friday this week, which marks the end of the 7-day window for anyone keen on challenging the outcome of the presidential results to file a petition. Sources told Citizen TV that NASA would file the case on Thursday, and should this happen, then the respondents must be served by Saturday to give them time to respond. The respondents in this case will mainly be IEBC through its chairman Wafula Chebukati, as well as the Jubilee Party through its presidential candidate Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto. The respondents must file their response by August 23rd, or 4 days after being served. The Supreme Court will then be required to hold a pre-trial conference on Friday next week to agree on ground rules on how to move the case, with the hearing to proceed between then and the 30th of August. If NASA files the case tomorrow, the court must give the verdict by Thursday, the 31st of August, being the 14th day after the filing. NASA's legal team is likely to comprise of Siaya Senator James Orengo, lawyers Paul Mwangi and Professor Ben Sihanya, who have been advising and representing the coalition in court on several matters and also instrumental during the 2013 presidential petition. IEBC is likely to be represented by senior counsel Paul Moite, lawyers Paul Nyamodi and Kamau Karori, who have also been representing the commission in several court disputes as well as the 2013 presidential appeal.
Their submissions.
For President Kenyatta and the Jubilee Party, familiar faces in a presidential petition are expected, including senior counsels Fred Ngatia, Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, and lawyer Faith Waigwa, who served at the Jubilee Party Disputes Tribunal after the party primaries. The Attorney General, Professor Githu Muigai, could be enjoined in the case as a friend of the court should he apply to be. At the center of the court argument by NASA is the alleged absence of all Form 34As that were used to declare results at the 40,883 polling stations. In its report, the European Union Election Observation Group has called on IEBC to promptly publish all the results forms for transparency and trust by all players. NASA has argued that the commission tallied results from non-existent forms, even as IEBC defended itself that more than 35,000 primary results documents were available for review by NASA, with the balance expected soon. At the Bomas of Kenya, the commission was still scanning original forms that had not been successfully transmitted from polling stations electronically.
We have received all the forms. We had 10,000 to scan. And right now we're only remaining with 1,000. We had to do it long hours into the night to be able to have them scanned, digitized.
The commission welcoming NASA's decision to move to court to challenge the results legally. Sam Kituku, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, thank you, Sam. We're going to go live to Kisumu County and get a reaction from the ground. We find our very own Wilkista Nyabwa live in Kisumu. Wilkista, what's the latest?
Good evening, Jeff Koinange. Well, there was quite a bit of anticipation in Kisumu today, especially once the announcement went round that NASA would be addressing their supporters at 3. And so for the major part of the day, we did see people going about their business and taking a break at around 3 p.m. to wait for that address to find out exactly what NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga would be saying. And once he made the declaration and announced that he would be moving to the Supreme Court, we did see people huddled in groups in Bunge la Wananchi, the People's Parliament, just assembling to speak about the import of this decision, wondering exactly how it would play out or what would transpire now that Raila has made this decision. And a number of them raised concerns and questions as to whether what this course of action would mean, given that Raila Odinga traveled the same course in 2013, and they questioned whether there would be a different outcome at this stage in particular. But many of them say they were prepared to just wait out the process, to see the process follow through till the end, and that this gave them a clearer idea of what they would be doing next. So many of them say they would go about their businesses as usual, even as they continued to follow the proceedings at the Supreme Court. And now let's have, I leave you with the sights and sounds and the reactions of Kisumu people shortly after the announcement was made.
Lakini swali letu la kubwa ni ya kwamba baada ya court kutupa nje mashahidi yetu 2013, mbona sasa tuarudi kotini tena? Kwa sababu Wakenya wanategea haki kutoka court, na tunaambiwa hapa ya kwamba kote duniani hakuna koti imewahi tupa mbali urais mwenye utangazwa.
Je, tutapata kietu pale? Hata tumepigia Saira ila simu bado ni mteja. Nafikiria bado alikuwa kwa meeting. Ili tumuulize ni mahakama gani hii tunaendelea na 2013 tulikuwa pale.
So swali la kwanza ya court ni ya kwamba wako na uwezo wa kutoa hiyo matangazo ya IBC ama hawana. Kama hawana, watuambie, Chief Justice atuambie sisi sote saa hii ya kwamba watakuwa na uwezo ya kufanya lolote chini ya sheria.
Now that our babas said something, we thought it would have been something good towards his winning. This is not the first time that our baba is going to the court. There was that issue of Supreme Court that was 2013. It didn't augur well. Now that is going again to court, the same court that has led us to astray. Which court is that, and who are going to be the judges?
All right, seems like deja vu all over again. By the way, that was our own Wilkista Nyabwa live there in Kisumu town. Now, and NASA's decision to challenge the results in court has effectively put on hold the swearing-in ceremony of President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto for a second term until the case is determined. Francis Kashuri tells us more.
The Subcommittee on Security, Protocol and Logistics at the Committee on Assumption to the Office of President had moved in at the Kasarani Stadium to secure what was settled on as the venue for the swearing-in ceremony for President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy William Ruto. But all these plans have to be put on hold after NASA and its presidential candidate in the Tuesday general election, Raila Odinga, opted to contest the poll outcome at the Supreme Court. Kenyatta and Ruto would have been sworn in on the 29th of this month to kick off their second term in office if no petition would have been filed by Friday this week. NASA has 48 hours to present its petition at the highest court in the land and table its evidence to persuade the 7-judge bench that the presidential election was marred by irregularities that would invalidate the outcome. If NASA files the petition tomorrow as widely expected, the Supreme Court will have until 31st of this month to hear and determine the matter. The law gives the court 14 days from the date of filing to hear and determine the petition. If the NASA petition is thrown out by the Supreme Court judges, Kenyatta and Ruto will be sworn in on 8th of September, that is, 7 days after the Supreme Court verdict. Kasarani Stadium remains the venue of choice for the Jubilee team and the Committee on the Assumption to the Office of President.
And it is the one that we are thinking, the one that has been chosen to host the swearing-in ceremony. So that's why we specifically came to this one. We are not going to visit the others because this is the one that's suitable because of its capacity.
Should Justice Maraga and his team rule in NASA's favor and nullify the Kenyatta-Ruto re-election, IEBC will be compelled to conduct a fresh presidential poll within 60 days of the court verdict. This means the Kenyan electorate will return to the ballot on 31st of October to resolve the row on State House occupancy for a 5-year term. Should a fresh presidential poll be held and any party is dissatisfied with the poll outcome, the matter will yet again head back to the Supreme Court for arbitration. Even in the event of a repeat presidential election, Kenyatta and Ruto will remain in office since Article 142 of the Constitution provides that the term of the president ends when the person next elected to the office is sworn in. Francis Gashuri, JKL.
All right, thank you, Francis. Now, in other news, Acting Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i has halted the deregistration of AFRICOG and Kenya Human Rights Commission. Matiang'i stopped the shutdown ordered by the NGO Coordination Board on a day the United States and the European Commission condemned the crackdown and asked the government to respect the rule of law. Hassan Magambi has the details.
Drama ensued at the AFRICOG headquarters in Lavington, Nairobi, when officers attached to the Kenya Revenue Authority and the Directorate of Criminal Investigations mounted a raid in pursuit of incriminating documents. Despite flashing a court order sanctioning the raid, activists drawn from different human rights organizations barred the officers from gaining entry.
You allow us to comply with the order unless you have another order stopping the compliance with that particular order, then that we can address in court. But for now, we would want to execute that order.
Na hata hiyo makaratasi tu walikuja nazo zilikuwa na hitilafu kadhaa. Kwa hivyo tukasema hatutakubali waingie.
The officers, however, retreated after intervention by Acting Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i. In a letter to the NGO Coordinating Board Executive Director Fazul Mohammed, Matiang'i suspended action against AFRICOG and the Kenya Human Rights Commission, asking Mohammed to allow a committee headed by Interior PS Karanja Kibicho to probe the compliance of the two bodies. In a letter seen by Citizen TV, Matiang'i says, "My view is that before conclusive and final actions such as deregistration, comprehensive and exhaustive engagement needs to happen. This would include an opportunity for the organizations and stakeholders concerned to engage with the NGOs Coordination Board and effectively address any outstanding non-compliance issues that may have led to the deregistration of the two organizations." The organizations have since been summoned before the committee on the 18th of this month and will be required to present registration certificates, a list of board of directors, tax compliance certificates, and a list of donors funding the organizations, among other vital documents. The crackdown on civil society was roundly condemned by the United States, the United Kingdom, and NASA leader Raila Odinga.
For those who have been blocked from seeking redress in courts, such as the sustained clampdown on the civil society, that have attempted to go to court.
Open civil society is really the foundation of a democratic country.
I think civil society needs to be given the space to carry out its important work.
The NGOs coordinating board had accused AFRICOG of operating illegal bank accounts, calling on the arrest of its directors. Hassan Mugambi, Citizen TV.
All right, thank you, Hassan. Now, in other news, IEBC Commissioner Dr. Rosalind Akomba was forced to spend several hours at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport last night after immigration officials stopped her from leaving the country. Dr. Akomba was traveling to New York on official duties when the officials refused to clear her for allegedly failing to produce clearance letter from the Public Service Commission, as is required of all state officers. The commissioner had already checked in with her boarding pass, but her luggage was removed from the plane after she was blocked from departing. Dr. Akombe was forced to retreat to the VIP lounge awaiting clearance. This morning, IEBC said Dr. Akombe was later cleared to travel and that Immigration Department officials had apologized. Now, listen to this sad story. A mother, her 2 children, and 2 others perished in a fire tragedy in Laikipia County last night. Sylvia Chibet has more details.
The site of a tragic fire incident which consumed 5 children and a mother. All 4 adjacent houses were razed to the ground.
Nyumba ya kwanza ilikuwa na watu wawili, watoto wawili, na nyumba ya pili ilikuwa na watoto 3 na mama moja. Kwa hivyo jumla ya watu 6 walishomekea kwa hiyo nyumba.
It was heading to midnight when the fire broke out. Njoroge Theory, the owner of the plot, who lives 2 kilometers away, drove to the scene alongside his wife. But it was already too late to salvage anything.
Kufika hapa tulikuta moto ikiwa imezingira hii plot yote. Na moto ilikuwa kubwa sana. Sasa there was hakuna kitu tungeweza kufanya hiyo moto.
Juu hakuna maji, hakuna simamoto, so hakuna kitu tungesaidia, si tuliangalia tu mpaka moto ikaisha.
This is Matanya village in Laikipia East, a remote place where preventable incidents like this is a death sentence.
Ni kweli kabisa, hapa changamoto ile kubwa kabisa. Laikipia especially Laikipia East, kuna shida kubwa sana ya maji. Na ndio hiyo jambo ambalo lilifanya sisi tujaribu tuombe nafasi ya utumishi ili tuweze kubadilisha maisha ya wananchi, kwa sababu changamoto hapa ni ukame, na ukame pia solution inatoka kwa national government.
The cause of the fire is not well established, but neighbors say a candle had been lit in the house where a mother perished with 3 of her children. Police are investigating the incident. Sylvia Chibet, Citizen TV.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Now, some welcome news, especially to the Matiba family. Listen to this. The High Court has awarded veteran politician Kenneth Matiba 504 million shillings compensation for wrongful detention by the state back in 1991. High Court Judge Chacha Mwita ruled that Matiba's rights were violated by President Daniel Arap Moi's regime during the struggle for multi-party democracy. The state is now required to pay 18 million shillings as medical expenses, 471 million shillings as compensation for financial losses occasioned by his illness and collapse of his businesses, and 15 million shillings for damages. Matiba was detained without trial for his struggle for multi-party democracy, has demanded 12 billion shilling from the state. All right, we're going to take a quick break now, come back, sports news, and then our interview. Yes, 3 lawyers, 3 seasoned lawyers are present. One of them might be heading to the Supreme Court for that argument. Maybe. Graham Muller, have they called you? We're asking you the question, what do you think of NASA's about turn? First they said they weren't going to court. Now they're going to court. Let's have your thoughts. 22422 is our SMS line. You can tweet us at Koinange Jeff, at Kamodo Ganjo, at Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi. Hashtag, as always, JKLive. JKLive takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.